Hello, River West Church. Good to be with you again. Today I want to bring a thought to you from the book of Psalms, and we're going to look at what is one of my very favorite Psalms. It's Psalm 3. And in order to really get the punch of this Psalm, a couple things you need to know about it. Number one is that this Psalm is actually the first prayer in the book of Psalms. So Psalms 1 and 2, it's kind of like an introduction to the whole book, but they're not prayers. So when we come to the book of Psalms, which is the book of prayer in God's Word, Psalm 3 is actually the very first prayer. But the second thing you need to understand is that this prayer is a prayer of King David, and it's a prayer that he prayed on the very worst day of his entire life. So let's read Psalm 3 and let me share with you a couple things. Here we go. Psalm 3. It says it's a psalm of David when he fled from Absalom, his son. O Lord, how many are my foes? Many are rising against me. Many are saying of my soul, there is no salvation for him in God. But you, O Lord, are a shield all around me, my glory, and the lifter of my head. I cried out loud to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy hill. I lay down and slept. I woke again, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of many thousands of people who have set themselves against me all around. Arise, O Lord, save me, O my God. For you strike all my enemies on the cheek. You break the teeth of the wicked. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessing be upon your people. Well, there it is. It's the very first prayer in the book of prayer. And as I said, it's a prayer that David prayed on the very worst day of his entire life. So the introduction to this psalm, it says it's when he fled from Absalom, his son. So in the biblical story, we know that Absalom, son of David, actually tried to take over the kingdom from his father and would actually have had his father put to death. So David has to flee, has to leave Jerusalem, leave the palace, run out to the wilderness, and it was kind of his own social distancing was he had to get away from everybody and go out and hide for his life. So this was the situation. Let me share with you some important truths that have really helped me in my life that I've gained from Psalm 3. The first one is this. Psalm 3 teaches me that life is filled with troubles, and I can bring every single one of those troubles to God in prayer. You may have noticed when I read this in verses 1 and 2, it repeats the word many 3 times. Oh Lord, how many are my foes? Many are rising against me. Many are saying of my soul, there is no salvation. And it's as if right from the get-go, it's many, 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 all kinds of troubles, all kinds of problems. You know, it was Shakespeare who said, when sorrows come, they come not as solitary soldiers, but they come in battalions. Isn't that the truth? I know someone right now who has the virus. They've had to lay off all of their employees, and including themselves, total loss of income. And they're at home trying to manage children in the home, homeschooling, all of these things. So it's amazing how all of the problems seem to just compound on one another, whether it's health, the economy, childcare, many, many, many problems. Well, that's the way it's always been. We live in a broken world. And the very first prayer in the book of Psalms reminds us that prayer is God's gift to us to navigate our lives in a very broken world. Many troubles. But you know what? You can bring every one of those troubles to God in prayer, and we need to. But here's a second thing that I learned from Psalm 3, and that is that the greatest battle of our lives is actually the battle for perspective and the battle for trust. Now, he says in verse 2, many are saying of my soul, there is no salvation for him in God. So now it's not just the troubles, but it's a perspective on troubles. And there are people that are saying about David, God's not going to help him. So he has to wrestle with doubt. Is God going to help me? The voices of doubt begin to shout out in our heads and in our hearts in times of great trouble. Now the battle is on, and the battle is not just with the troubles. The battle is with the perspective that I'm going to hold in my heart in those times of trouble. And so Psalm 3 teaches me, thirdly, that prayer is the place where we say no to the voices of doubt and we say yes to the goodness and the glory and the power of God. Now, David had to make a choice. And he made that choice in verse 3 because many are saying God's not going to help him. Verse 3, but you, O Lord, are a shield all around me. You're my glory and the lifter of my head. I cried to the Lord. He answered me from his holy hill. You know what holy hill means? That's code for the place of God's throne. It's as if David is saying, you know what? Here's what I choose to believe. I believe that God is still on the throne. I believe in God's glory, in God's power, in God's presence. And that's what I'm going to affirm. Now, that's what we do in prayer. Prayer is when we wrestle past our doubts and our fears, and we look up and we say, God, I'm feeling all these troubles, and I'm hearing all these voices of doubt. But Lord, I'm going to continue to talk to you. I'm going to continue to put my faith in you. And I'm going to continue to say, Lord, you are on the throne. Now in verse 5, he says, I laid down and slept, and I awoke again, for the Lord sustained me. In times of trouble, isn't it true? It seems like at night when we go to bed or we lay our head upon the pillow, that's a lot of times when we start processing all of the doubts and the fears and the troubles, and we try to find solutions, and we're troubled, and it's hard to sleep at that point. And what I love about this psalm is that David essentially says, after I wrestled through my doubts and I decided to put my faith in God, I was able to sleep, and God sustained me. So here's, for me, what I am doing now at night when I go to bed every night and all the wheels are turning and I process a lot. That's just my nature. I'm laying in bed, and what I do is I bring all my troubles to God, and I can just pray about all of them. But then at the end of that prayer, here's what I do. I say, God, you're still on the throne. Lord, you're on the throne, and my life is in your hands. And with that, I'm able to find peace. You sleep through the night. Lord, you're on the throne. My life is in your hands. That's the first prayer in the book of prayer in times of trouble. What a great lesson for us as we live in troubled times. And so I want you guys tonight, when you go to bed, pull out Psalm 3, read through it, and then go through this process that you find here. God's going to really bless you as you do that. God bless.